More people coming in. It's a very busy time of the year, and I can imagine you all have very busy schedules at the moment as well. For those of you I haven't met before, my name is Nicole Finlay. I'm the CEO for Reconciliation Victoria, and it's a great privilege today to be joined by some very special guests, and we'll be sharing some more details about our special guests shortly as we get into our webinar more deeply. But before we begin, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the many lands that we are meeting on today, and I'd like to just let you know that I'm meeting with you on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung. We're very privileged to be operating on their country in our Brunswick office, and I'm out at Greensborough today. I'd also like to extend my deepest respects to the elders that continue to guide our work, past, present and emerging. And I'd like to acknowledge the First Peoples who are joining with us today. I'd also like to recognise the continuing connection that First Peoples have to lands, to water, to skies and communities. And I thank all of the community members that we work with on an ongoing basis in the work we do at Reconciliation Victoria. And we work in strong partnership with community and do all we can in all of our work to amplify their voices, their truth-telling, and to advance treaties in Victoria. So thank you very much for joining with us. Again, if you'd like to share where you're streaming with us today, just acknowledging the many countries that we're meeting on. In today's webinar, I'd just like to go over some of the details of what we'll be covering today with you. So some of you may not be familiar with the Maggolee platform, so we'll be sharing a little bit more about the work we do on Maggolee. It isn't just a website, it's a place where we share best practice and we share ideas and knowledge and respect for First Peoples. We're also going to be talking about National Reconciliation Week, which many of you will know. This is our annual peak time of the year for reconciliation workers who will be joining us today. You'll probably run off your feet at the moment as well. So we know that everything will kick off from the 27th of May and run through to the 3rd of June. So we'll be deep diving into what the Rec Week theme is about this year. And Karen Mundine, the CEO from Reconciliation Australia, we're very privileged to have Karen joining us today, and she'll speak more about the importance of this theme. We'll also be talking about the Maggolee Awards, which sees self-determination in action in local governments. It celebrates self-determination for First Peoples, and we held our inaugural Maggolee Awards last year, and we'll be hosting them again this year on the 30th of May at the Djaara Community Hub in Flemington. So we'll look forward to sharing more about that today, and also speaking with Donna Spiller, who works at Djaara Aboriginal Corporation, aka Djaara. Donna was a recipient of the 2023 Maggolee Awards with two councils. So it'll be wonderful to chat with Donna a bit more today. So we'll get a little bit further just in terms of where we're sharing details and information today. At any point that you'd like to engage with us, please feel free to put something in the chat, or just to click on here to the Mentimeter as we ask questions with you. We have some questions which we always raise with local government workers because you do such important work, and we really need to gauge, the content that interests you, the things you want to learn about and hear about from First Peoples and from the reconciliation space. So we'll be asking a series of questions today from you. So click in here onto the Mentimeter QR code, and that'll enable you to answer the questions we ask along the way. So as we get into our next slide, I just wanted to let you know I've got my team with me in the background from Rec Vic today. We've got Anna, we've got Emily, and we've got Jude with us. So anything you need help with today, the team will be able to support you. So pop it in the chat if you need some support. With Maggolee, so as I said, it isn't just a website, it is a space for us to share knowledge and exchange ideas and to share best practice. This space came about as it was a seed of an idea back in 2010 from a local government worker, John Smith at the time, that is his real name. He's still about today, was working with the city of Darebin, and he planted the seed for why, there were so many great things happening on the ground where communities and Aboriginal communities and local councils were doing really amazing work, and there wasn't really a platform to share the work that was being done. So a lot of that information was being lost. So really, Maggolee came about to ensure that we would have a place to house this best practice and share the great work and the positive stories that are happening and positive relationships happening in and across all the local government areas and traditional owner countries across the state. One of the things I did want to mention, and a special thank you to local government Victoria for the ongoing funding support that they've given to us for the work we do in the Maggolee space. And we do, with local government Victoria, we support the strategy, the Victorian Aboriginal local government strategy, which is active until 2026. We'd invite you to have a look more deeply into this strategy and see how this work coincides with the reconciliation work that you are doing and the RAPs that you are developing. So we might hop along to our next slide. Just in terms of our activities for the year ahead, we'll continue to do our Maggolee webinars and our workshops. We have another Maggolee workshop coming up, hopefully in May or June. So we'll keep you updated about that, and obviously the Maggolee Awards. We've got a Mentimeter question here, and we're just wanting to invite you to let us know the types of topics that you really do want to hear about. We know that treaty negotiations are underway between the state and also are being rapidly progressed with the Assembly, with the First Peoples Assembly. That might be a topic you'd like to know more about, and also from the truth-telling process that is underway as well. These might be key topics that we could support to inform you a bit further on these. So let us know what topics interest you, and then we'll head along to our next slide if we can. Most importantly, this is the topic that hopefully many of you have joined us today to learn more about what's happening for National Reconciliation Week on a national scale. And obviously, we'd love to hear from you about what type of activities that you'll be running this year. Many of you will know that as we head into Rec Week, there's some significant events that take place before National Reconciliation Week. In Victoria, in our landscape, we have the Long Walk, which takes place on the 25th of May, and that will take place at the Dreamtime match at the MCG and Fed Square. And then preceding that, importantly, on the 26th of May, we have Sorry Day, where we recognise the impact of government policies and how that those policies continue to impact stolen generations today. So, and then we head into Reconciliation Week from there on the Monday, the 27th of May, and then that's bookended with Mabo Day on the 3rd of June. But to tell us much, much more about this year's theme, a very important theme now more than ever, I'd like to welcome the CEO of Reconciliation Australia, Karen Mundine, to the screen and to chat with us and share a little bit more with us. Now, Karen is a proud Bundjalung woman who's from northern New South Wales. She's the CEO of Reconciliation Australia. She's worked in the reconciliation space all her life, and she plays an enormous role in steering the reconciliation wheel in Australia. Her contribution to the reconciliation movement is unrelenting. It's truly admirable and it's immeasurable. And it is with great pleasure that we welcome Karen to chat with us today. Thank you for joining us, Karen.
Thank you for the kind invitation, Nicole, and it's such a great pleasure to be with you.
Oh, thank you. And I know you are very busy leading up to Rec Week, and we're getting a few applause saying thank you for joining us. Now, talking about this year's theme, many of us get very excited about what the theme represents for us, and it really provides that motivation to, you know, what activities will we be running this year? And off the back of the referendum result last year, many of us were hurting and greatly impacted by that result. And it would be great if you could talk to us a little bit more about the theme now more than ever and why Rec Australia chose this theme this year.
Sure. So first of all, I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm joining you from the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation up here in Sydney, and I want to pay respects to the elders here. When I think about place and the privilege of living and working on this part of the world, and thinking about the work that we do in reconciliation, this being kind of one of those places of early contact. And certainly what happened here in this place set the tone for much of what happened across this state, but also across this country. So I'm always mindful of that. And because we're just on the edge of Redfern, there's a really strong history of resistance, of stepping up and community engagement in modern eras as well. So, and I know that there've been a lot of Victorians who have been part of those movements, both here on country, in Gadigal country, but also the amazing work that's now happening down there in Victoria. Now more than ever, it's every year we kind of get together pretty much about a month or so, or a couple of weeks after NAIDOC week, to think about what does the year ahead look like and what might our theme be. And really, although it fits very well coming off the back of the referendum and the result of that referendum, we actually set this theme up not knowing what that result was going to be. But what we thought is this idea of actually, no matter what the result of that referendum is, we really have to take the opportunity of what comes out of that. So we were, of course, hoping for a positive response from the referendum. We were hoping that we could say, okay, now that we've done that, how do we capitalise on that? How do we make this true? Unfortunately, it didn't happen that way. And it probably now resonates more than ever, in that what we're really asking people is, if you are an ally, if you believe in reconciliation, now is the time to step up. What the referendum and the campaign around that has exposed for us is that there's a lot of misinformation. There is a lot of not knowing happening in the broader community. And really that just means for our allies, it's time to dig in deep. And just when we thought we were doing well, it actually exposed just how far we have to go. I'd also probably say that part of our thinking of this is about 4 years ago, we did our last State of Reconciliation in Australia report. And we talked about then this idea of a tipping point. So we talked about the hundreds of thousands of people who are honest with us on this journey of reconciliation, those that are doing reconciliation action plans, those in the education spaces with Narrabeen Wally, those people who are just in their everyday lives looking to do and think differently, and how do you engage with First Nations peoples. And we talked about this idea of a tipping point. If we're going to get to that point where this stuff just becomes our part of our everyday. Clearly, what the referendum has said to us 4 years on is that we're not at that tipping point yet. So again, this is the urgency of our call to action. There is so much happening in our world at the moment, not just in Indigenous affairs in Australia, globally. And I think what it says to me is this is where we need to be vigilant. This is where we need to step up and stand up for things that are important to us. And for those changes in systems and policies and processes, but just in the simplest of our relationships, those things that are important to us, we've actually got to stand up and defend them. I think sometimes we can get a little complacent when we live in a reasonably safe and secure community. And I think sometimes that belies, I guess, some of the terrible things or things that are being kind of ebbed away. So this is really our call to action. It's how do we get up? How do we stand up? How do we voice and take action in the things that will actually defend the rights of First Nations peoples, but equally enhance and grow for all of our benefits?
And do you think also, off the back of the referendum, one of the things that really stood out to us in with RecVic was really, I guess, this sort of, like, there seemed to be a large lack of awareness in what reconciliation actually is. And we know that reconciliation means different things to different, to people. And I wonder, in that call to action, I guess we know with local councils, they have such a strong role in being able to influence and increase awareness about what reconciliation means in terms of those practical, digging deeper and those practical actions to inform our communities more greatly what reconciliation represents. We hear from great leaders like, Dr. Jackie Huggins, who talk about reconciliation as being truth, justice, and recognition for her, and saying that if that's what it represents, we have so much more work to do. And I noted today your beautiful badge with your URIC badge, and I'm wearing my URIC t-shirt, and we've if councils really have that strong role to support like the work of URIC and truth telling in our communities as a vital part of reconciliation and that justice component, and also that recognition, how can they influence at all angles to increase that community awareness? Because it did seem very evident post the referendum that there is a knowledge gap in what reconciliation actually is. It'd be great if you could share your thoughts about that, Karen.
Yeah, so truth-telling is absolutely inseparable from this idea of reconciliation. They are a part and parcel. And when we look at the 5 dimensions of reconciliation that we came up with back in 2016, and so it talks about equality and equity, race relations, institutional integrity, unity, and historical acceptance. And historical acceptance was then our way of talking about truth-telling. So it goes back to, it's about knowing our past and our history, but not just knowing it as a bunch of facts and figures or things that happened in the past. It's also accepting and understanding that those relationships, those things that happened in the past continue to have an impact and effect on today. And unless we make changes today, that continues to have an effect and impact on the relationships going forward. And I think it also is about, I think often, and if I reflect on the referendum, that was a big national conversation. And I think for lots of people, it felt big and important. And don't get me wrong, big and important is important, and that is also part of change. But part of change is also what is local and real in communities. And I think this is where local government is at a real advantage. Local government is very much about place. And for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, place is so important. There's a reason why we do acknowledgements of country and why we have elders welcome us to place. It shapes our stories, it shapes our experiences, it shapes our everyday interactions. And really, that's what reconciliation has to be about. It is about big structural change, but big structural change is also about those small moments. It's about understanding each other better. And storytelling, not in a simplistic way, but as a way to make sense of the places that we live in, but also all those signifiers. So things like names of parks and names of streets and places, understanding what happened in these places before they've now had concrete and buildings over top of them. And that despite the concrete and the buildings, these stories continue to live. And that's what Aboriginal culture is about. We launched just last week a new piece of research around looking at the enablers and barriers to truth-telling. And one of the really important things, or a couple of really important things, are it absolutely has to be community-led, so Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander-led. When we embark on these things, we have to look at it that it's trauma-informed. And by that, we just mean we can't do more harm by going through this process. We have to think about how do we care for people along the way. But also, these things are not one-off things. They are living, breathing, ongoing things. And that's why for many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, the story of the past is also the story, as I said, of the now and the future. And I mean, we were so lucky last week, earlier in the week when we were with you down there in Victoria, Nicole, and to be able to be at the UROC Commission and to be at one of those hearings and to hear that generational story, but not a story of burden and negativity, a story of pride and strength. And so again, I think that's the challenge, particularly for all of us in these spaces. How do we tap into what is the opportunity? So we acknowledge the negatives and how that continues to play out, but how do we take the positives out of that? How do we use that strength as the foundation for change as we move forward?
And that's so accurate, and really about the those public hearings that are coming out from the URIC Commission, I mean, just the idea that schools and councils can stream in, any organisation, RAP organisations alike, can stream in and watch those hearings, or actually do staff information sessions on those hearings. There's no shortage of information coming out of the URIC Commission, and we were, as you said, so privileged. The Australian Reconciliation Network came together last week, and we sat in on those hearings, and we're all deeply moved. And we also had the fortune of going to meet the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria, and I know that with all the other reconciliation leaders, CEOs from the other states, being able to see these progressive things that are happening, it gives that great hope that these will transpire and also move into other states, and that we'll see other states doing that. But Victorian councils, local councils, we're in a very privileged and progressive space, that these are underway in our lifetime. They're happening. And I guess in our visit to the Assembly, we were able to hear from the co-chair, from Ruben Berg, who informed us that, the truth-telling process is actually all the evidence base that's taking us into the treaty negotiation space, and how they're so connected. I wonder, from us meeting with Ruben and you personally meeting with him, what did you take away from that meeting that would then, I guess, inform the work that local councils are doing to support treaty negotiations and what they can do? Are you able to talk about that how that meeting makes you kind of think this is what local councils could be doing?
Yeah, so I think my team here at Reconciliation Australia, they really hate that I consistently challenge them with yeah, but why? So every time they come with a great idea, I love it, but it's like, yeah, but why? And if you can explain to me why, then we can explain it to the rest of the country. And I think that's what truth-telling is really about. It's uncovering the why for treaty. So one of the things that Ruben talked about really clearly, and I've heard many elders from Victoria say, is that treaty is the aspiration, the end goal that we're aiming for here. And truth-telling is the way to explain why this is important, why it's needed, but also why we need to change things. And fundamental to all of that is the systems that have been created over the last 200 plus years aren't working. And if they're not working for First Nations peoples, we know that they also don't work for so many other community groups in the 21st century. So the thing that I found really both exciting and, just exciting, was what we were seeing and experiencing is there's a new way of thinking about how we do engagement. We are rewriting the rules around what systems look like and how systems work with people. And I think sometimes we forget systems and organizations are really about people. And so when we forget the people out of that process, we end up with things that are just not fit for purpose anymore. So what I would say to local government is, again, you are at the kind of coalface, you are in communities. There's a very kind of directness that happens within local government. And I think there are so many ways that local councils can be thinking about what is it that you do with your communities that is specific to your community that will change these systems or just open it up. And part of that has to be about the relationship. Part of that is about the listening. One of the things I was quite taken with when we launched our report last week was it's not just about truth telling, it's about truth listening. So who is at the other end of these stories? And what do people do with that information when we hear it? How does that inspire and engage us to think differently about the sphere of influence that I have, whether it's me, the individual, whether it's me within my role within local government, whether it's in an organisation, whether it's a school? How am I inspired to think differently about the work I do, and what can I do to make those kind of changes?
Mm-hmm. And Karen, that's where we've seen ourselves in the post-referendum landscape, especially in the reconciliation spaces, and we're servicing a much higher demand of from RAP organisations, and we know that within the 79 local governments across the state, we have a figure of around 24 that have RAPs at the moment, or active RAPs. And I guess we are seeing also this growth in RAPs across the state more broadly, and how councils can actually work with their own RAP and and those RAP organisations. And I guess I'm sort of really trying to see how, hopefully, that we see we've already seen a trend here in Victoria where we've seen health organisations come out in and put position statements out in support of treaty. Is that something with the RAP program that we might be likely to see this in Victoria alone, with RAP organisations and local councils? These, like we saw with the Uluru Statement from the Heart last year, we saw these very public statements being made. Do you think we are likely to see that potentially with RAP organisations, that they'll come out with public statements in Victoria, support statements for treaty? Do you think we might see that, or is it something we can encourage?
Well, I think this is for RAP organisations and that network of organisations, particularly in Victoria, to have those discussions to decide what is important to them. At the end of the day, a RAP is just a vehicle for a plan. So it's a business plan that helps an organisation think in a strategic way about how to reach these outcomes. So it doesn't sit on its own. It sits in with a whole bunch of other strategies. I guess one of the positive things around, or one of the good things that we see in RAPs, is there's that kind of public accountability. So part of that might be around making statements in support of. But what I would challenge every organisation, and this is in keeping with our theme of now more than ever, it has to go beyond just public statements. I think words are important, don't get me wrong, and having that visibility of support is very important. But I also know that there are so many organisations within that RAP network who can do so much more than just signal support or have virtual visibility of a statement. It's about the actions, and that's why they're called RAPs, is what is the actions that you can do that is about thinking differently, about engaging with First Nations peoples differently. And it's ultimately about, how am I thinking about my business to know, be, and do different? And so I guess that's the challenge that we're asking everyone to participate in, not just for National Reconciliation Week, that's our highlight week, but it's something that we want everyone to think about for the weeks, the months, the year going ahead. What else can I be doing? And there is an urgency to this, because that opportunity that has come off the back of the referendum, we don't want people to be disheartened by that either. We want people to be fired up for it. I think there was a feeling, and I know we were talking about this last week, we're all tired. For some people, it took a lot out, and particularly for a lot of First Nations people and leaders, it took a lot of energy out with the referendum. So this is where we're looking for our supporters, our allies, our friends to step up and take that mantle forward.
Thank you. And I do have one last question before you leave us. And most importantly, because you've talked about, going deeper and going, and making reconciliation all year round. And we've really touched on, truth telling quite a bit in our conversation today. But importantly, Rec Australia has done that and has been thinking, how do we do truth telling all year round? And I understand that, since 2016, you've been working on the development of a community truth telling pathways program. And I think this is a really exciting opportunity to bring all reconciliation supporters and RAP organisations into this. I guess it's a new program, but I'd love to hear more about this program, if the timing is right. Karen, if you can share a bit about the program.
Sure. Yeah, it's certainly something we've been working on for a while now. As I said, truth telling is fundamentally part of what is reconciliation. And so we took some time out, well, not some time out, we brought people together back in 2017, 18, to start to kind of create a definition to understand and unpack when we talk about truth telling. What do we actually mean? To help us develop some fundamentals and a framework of how we think about this. So definitions, understanding what's already happening out in communities, and also, I guess, to create the idea around what are the benefits of these processes. So if we want anyone to do anything, we know we've got to be able to sell the benefits, not just for First Nations peoples, but for the broader community, of which there are many. As I said before, we've learned that absolutely has to be trauma informed, in that we cannot create more harm or damage by going through these processes, which tends to mean that we walk a little bit slower and softer in this space than perhaps we would in other ways. We're not quite there yet in terms of the big launch of an event, but reports like the one that we did last year, and I do encourage people to have a look on our website, helps us to better understand what are the opportunities, what are the barriers, and how do we build support mechanisms around that? How do we build resources and frameworks that will help others pick up this work? Because it's the work that each and every one of us has to do if we're going to get to this idea of treaty or this idea of a reconciled country, where we reconcile our past with our present and our future.
And it's such an exciting proposition, and that program really for taking all RAP organisations along, bringing us along on this journey, and all reconciliation supporters, because really we see so much truth telling in those local places and the local council areas and local on the traditional owner countries, and those partnerships that councils have often reveal all those local stories. And I think this program for Rec Australia is a great way of inviting those stories onto a really, a national platform. So thank you so much for sharing more about that. I'm no doubt we will touch base more as the program unfolds and is officially launched. But thank you for giving us a bit of a sneak preview today. And Karen, appreciate your time as always, and no doubt we'll connect further. We will invite a lot of the local councils to share what they're doing, and as they're sharing their activities for Rec Week, we'll invite them to pop them up on Rec Australia's website as well as Rec Victoria's. But thank you so much for your time today, Karen.
Thank you, a pleasure, Nicole. And one thing that I forgot to plug as an action that people might want to think about, we're once again working with choirs this year. So last year it was From Little Things, Big Things Grow. And this year our song is the classic Warumpi band song, Black Fella, White Fella. And it really challenges us to stand up and be counted. So if you've got choirs out there, or even just your staff want to get together, we'd love to see those videos.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Karen. I can't sing. I'm a terrible singer, but invite everyone else to get active if you've got a good singing voice. But I'll have a lovely week ahead, Karen, and really look after yourself leading up to Rec Week, and we'll keep in touch further.
You too, Nick. Cheers.
Thank you. All righty. Well, that was a beautiful conversation with Karen, and I hope that if you're joining us today, I think a few people came in a little bit later as we were chatting and doing our acknowledgement today. But if you'd like to share which countries or councils you're joining with us from today, please pop that in the chat. We're really, really pleased that we were able to have that conversation with Karen today. And we're going to head into a little bit of a further conversation now, just in regards to our Maggolee Awards. And many of you will have joined our Maggolee conversations over the last year and know that we held our inaugural awards last year. And we had 17 local councils across the state submit nominations for the awards, and the awards celebrate self-determination in action in Victorian local governments. And what does that mean, supporting self-determination? We're going to head into supporting self-determination for First Peoples and with First Peoples. And importantly, we'll hear from Donna Spiller today, who's another special guest who we're talking to shortly, who was one of the recipients of the Maggolee Awards in 2023. So we'll be presenting the awards this week during National Reconciliation Week on Thursday, 30th of May at Djaara Community Hub, which is a community hub which is run by Moonee Valley City Council and in Flemington. So we would love you to come along to that. If you haven't put that in your diary yet, please do. The nominations are open at the moment. The submission process is open and online. We'll provide that link at the end of today's webinar. But we would love to chat more about these awards with you and invite councils. Every council across Victoria is welcome to put a submission in there. To find out more about these awards, we're going to hear from Donna now, if we can. We'll hop along to our next slide. So I wanted to get this right, and I might get the language wrong here, Donna. So Yilinga Marna Partnership Builder, which is a great title, and I love that it includes language. And Donna is a very, very strong ally and strong leader in the reconciliation community as well here in Victoria. Donna has done a lot of work over the years with Alexander Shire Council and also with with Mount Alexander Shire Council, excuse me, and also with Hepburn Shire Council. Donna is joining us from Djaara Aboriginal Corp, which is also known as Djaara. But I'll now jump into conversation with Donna if I can, and welcome her into the webinar. How are you going, Donna?
Yeah, good, thank you. I'm on southern Djaara country today by Mount Kruitjang, so I just want to acknowledge the beautiful lands here and pay my respects to the elders and community on Djaara country.
Oh, beautiful, and the fires are burning up that way. It's looking good. I know that
we've launched into our Dandak Wee cultural burning program, yes.
And so you're inviting community members at the moment to take part in that fire burning program?
There are different ones where the community is invited to come along. So it's all part of that education, isn't it? And caring for country, there are so many different ways and tools to do that. And with the self-determined approach, wonderful things can happen.
Well, Donna, I'd love to get into a little bit more detail about when we opened the Maggolee Awards last year. It wasn't necessarily you who put the nomination in, but it was the councils that you had worked with from Mount Alexander Shire and Hepburn Shire who put the nominations in, but they were around projects that you had worked on. And, you know, it'd be great if we could talk a little bit about those projects, and because they really emphasize the importance of councils developing strong relationships with First Peoples and traditional owners.
Yeah, it actually kind of links into what Karen was talking about, one with the truth telling and, you know, informing the community on what's happened in our history in Australia. And so I think the Frontier Wars Memorial Avenue of Honour, which is the only one that exists in the whole of Australia as a Avenue of Honour, and we know we have many avenues of honour across particularly Victoria. So, you know, that was an important step in truth-telling, and it came through the Reconciliation Advisory Committee to Council. An Aboriginal member of the community brought that forward. And then I worked with Djaara to make sure, as I think Karen touched on, that we're not creating more trauma by acknowledging and truth-telling. So worked, had lots of yarns there with Rodney and then the CEO at Djaara. And then we worked with the cultural heritage team there to understand what sort of ceremony would take place at that site for the opening. Again, going back to that self-determined coming together in partnership and making decisions together about what that ceremony would look like. So really a significant project and one that I'm very proud to have led. But yeah, there's certainly more work to be done in that space.
And thank you to everybody who's just putting in the countries they're on and streaming in for us. So it's, you know, Donna, to be a strong ally and a reconciliation supporter, you know, to be working with land councils from going from the government, local government space and then into working with an Aboriginal corp, that really talks to the work that you've done over the years with community and building those strong relationships to find yourself now working in a land council. Has that felt like a pretty natural transition for you to move across from local government into a land council?
Oh, not really. But it's been challenging, as a non-Aboriginal person to step into that space and feel you can speak to projects, and it's a change coming from the reconciliation space, and I've had to have real shift and real trust in myself, but beautifully the organisation is so supportive and encouraging, and you've earned your place here. It's okay to speak. So
Yeah.
been a bit of a shift. I wanted to talk a bit about that, the process, of implementing self-determination, because local government, it's very process driven. I don't think of myself as a process driven person. I think of myself as a relationship builder. But interesting, Karen touched on that, the process and the people, and the two have to go together. So I think that's really important. Yeah. I mean, council's really well placed to implement self-determination. It's got the means and the opportunities to do it. So,
And if we've got councils with us today who might be considering, putting a nomination in, they might be thinking, well, I don't know if we are supporting self-determination. Truly, is this something we should put it in? We know that if we underline and say, oh, it's about, strong partnerships and developing strong partnerships, we do see a lot of councils go, oh, okay, well, I think we are working on the relationship piece. We will put a submission in. Is that one part of supporting self-determination? What would be other parts as well that are important as far as what councils can do and what in that relationship building piece?
Well, if I speak to the other award from last year, which was the Bunjil permanent cultural exhibition, Karen also mentioned stories of pride and strength, and that was a unique situation where councils need to really make this shift from First Nations peoples and registered Aboriginal parties as stakeholders and someone you consult with, to shifting to that shared decision making and real, authentic partnership. And that's what happened with Uncle Rick being employed at Mount Alexander Shire Council. He was no longer, we might consult on this project. No, he led the project from within council. And the outcome from that, the benefit of that self-determined process, is that everybody benefited, really, because we have this amazing cultural exhibition that's just so wonderful, both for the local mob there in Castlemaine, but across Djaara country and across, all the visitors that go through there. It's just been a wonderful project, and one that I think is probably the favourite thing I've worked on, and also working alongside Uncle Rick so closely for a year. But there's all sorts of ways councils work, in partnership, and Mount Alexander have worked on that partnership with Uncle Rick for over a decade. It's not just something that went, oh, we'll just get an elder to come and work here. Those relationships take years to build, and that's why it was so authentic.
And it really did touch on that truth telling and that increasing community respect for the truth telling and the stories. And how much does that contribute to not just the relationship building, but the trust building, when that leadership is afforded and that shared decision making works really well with traditional owners?
Yeah, I think it's the great thing doing. They can see what's being done elsewhere. I mean, local government loves nothing more than to see something that's already being done in some ways. It gives councillors some kind of, I guess, they get nervous about venturing into new territory. So seeing what other councils are doing is so inspiring, both for the officers and for the broader community. And I would encourage people to put the application in, talk to your Aboriginal community and your registered Aboriginal party, if that's the case, about the application. Do they support it? What's their input into it?
Mm.
I've always gone back to whoever I worked with and let them know this is the intent to put in an application. Do they support it? I mean, that's what self-determination is all about.
Yeah.
So I think that's my starting point. That should be the officer's starting point. Absolutely.
And we have multiple councils that are operating on the same traditional owner countries. And I guess I just really wanted to say to councils, last year we had Wyndham City Council and Hobsons Bay who did a joint application, if you like, because they were on they were on the same traditional owner country. And I guess that where councils could actually put a joint application in as well, because I think that's probably important, with just a bit more collaboration between councils who are working with the same traditional owner groups. Now that you're working in at Djaara, how important is that to see more collaboration between councils when they're building relationships with traditional owners, Donna?
Oh, I think it's vital. I mean, apart from the workload and not wanting to reinvent the wheel, and sharing knowledge amongst officers and councils, and working together on building the partnership, because you need an all-of-country approach. I know there's municipal boundaries, and that's what local government works within. But if you think about what local government can do within their own community, and then when that's amplified across the state through all the LGAs, I mean, that'd be an amazing outcome if we're all working together for the same thing. So it really needs to be an all-of-country approach, I think.
Yeah. And just out of observations with the local councils that you're working with now down through Djaara, are you seeing more councils sort of start to take up are you seeing an increase in RAP interest, the development of RAPs, or the Victorian Aboriginal and local government strategies? Is that what's happening in the central Vic landscape?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am, Nicole. I am seeing, I have officers contact me, to talk about RAP plans, and obviously working from the perspective of Djaara, we want to see Djaara specific actions within RAPs, and a lot of the traditional owner groups, may want that input, and that's again comes back to shared decision making and self-determination. So to have that perspective in there as well. I'm starting to hear more about the valves. I think for the first couple of years it was pretty quiet. People didn't know how to work with it. But now there is more conversation building and how to perhaps embed the valves and the RAP together. Which is really interesting as well. And I think we're still grappling with how these documents all work side by side. But I think for me, one of the key things I come back to is council vision and council plan. If they could be embedded with your traditional owner strategies and country plans, then that shared decision making is already halfway there, because council works so much to those vision statements. It's their guiding document, just like the country plan. The Dalkunya Djaara is Djaara's guiding document. So we need to bring those together. And then, we're working towards reconciliation through that as well, aren't we? It's all about that partnership. We just got to move away from this stakeholder idea to genuine partnership.
And in terms of councils that are sort of still trying to increase their awareness about because again we talk about the two world lens, that we kind of have this perception of what self-determination might mean for First Peoples. And I guess if you were to sort of think about the strategies you'd like to see in local councils in increasing that awareness about, through a First Peoples lens, what self-determination, means to them, what sort of strategies do you think, practical strategies, councils could be doing better to increase their awareness around self-determination?
Yeah, sorry, you dropped out a little bit there. I think my internet's slow, but I think I get the gist of what you're saying. But absolutely. All these guiding documents. I mean, I look at Djaara's resource page. We have amazing strategies on caring for waterways, on forest planning, on Jandak wheat, fire, biodiversity, sustainability. If all these documents are intertwined with council's documents, you're delivering self-determination, because our strategies have been developed with member engagement. You've got to think about self-determination, or what's our governance, what's our process. We work with members to, have their input into our strategies. And then if council are looking to those strategies to embed into theirs, then we're achieving self-determined action, I think.
It's brilliant. Thank you, Donna. We do have a tiny little bit of a lag. I'm getting at your end too, but I think that's a really terrific point. You've really talked about, we'll get in your consultation with traditional owners, find out what their existing plans are already and amalgamate them into council's plans. That's a really great point. I guess we've got a little bit of time left, but I really wanted to touch on what are some of the reconciliation initiatives will Djaara be kind of focusing on as we head into Rec Week this year, and how will that kind of what will you be doing across your region for Reconciliation Week?
Well, that's a good question. I haven't even asked the Cultural Heritage team what's going on. I've been so busy, but it's going to come at me at any moment now. I'm still very involved with, the local government network, the Reconciliation Local Government Network. So I'm looking forward to our next meeting and hearing what local government are doing, and what the communities are doing. I know when I was an officer at council in reconciliation, and communities say, "What are council doing?" And I'd say, "Well, what are you doing?" Everyone can be doing stuff together. And I look forward to hearing what Djaara is doing. But I think mostly, we look forward to NAIDOC Week as well. So there'll be a hive of activities across country, I'm sure. At the moment, we're focused on things like Jandak Wee, which has just launched. It's a very special time to get that cultural burns back on country. So there's a lot of focus on that at the moment. And for me personally, moving into the Yilinga Marna role, I'm looking at our partnership with the City of Greater Bendigo. So that's my focus at the moment. But I'm looking forward to the Maggolee Awards and seeing what council's been, what the LGA have been up to. And I really think what you said about, applying together for projects as well is really, really important, because we do work across boundaries, council boundaries. You have to.
And we really have, we've got a couple of nominations that have come in already, but we would really love to see a few more nominations in. We've got 10 awards this year, so we've actually lifted the amount of awards that we had, doubled from last year, and that will be a really beautiful carving artwork, which will come to us again from Graham Gilbert, who's the Wiradjuri Bunurong artist who's hand carved those. So we're looking.
Will that be a breakfast again, Nicole? What's the plan?
We're not doing the breakfast this year. We're going to do it hopefully online. So letting you know now, and it'll be on our Rec Week calendar. But this year I had a bit of movement with my staff, which many of you will know, in terms of how that feels. One of my staff are so brilliant that they're now working with in the treaty negotiation process. Some of the amazing staff I've had have gone across to the Assembly and within state government. So that's brilliant for them, but it means I always have to recruit again, which is
we look forward to coming together maybe next year. But I think the important thing is that the awards are highlighted and we all get to see what the LGAs are doing, and I hope they're doing wonderful things.
Well, as you know, with the breakfast last year, the awards were amazing, but we went over time, and so this year I decided that all of us would come together for a dedicated Maggolee Awards ceremony in at Djerring. So I think Sam Buckley might be with us today from Moonee Valley City Council. So we're coming together at Djerring at the Flemington hub, and we'll do a proper sort of a proper ceremony this year. So we'll give it a little bit more time for 2 hours for everybody, and some food and that there, and just a chance for all the councils to connect. So that's going to be that'll be on the morning of that 30th of May. So hopefully it'll be around 10 till 12. So if you can get that in your diaries. And if we can drum up some more submissions. Last year we had Knox City Council, we had Mount Alexander Shire, Hepburn Shire, and Wyndham City Council and Hobson's Bay. And I think I haven't missed out Moonee Valley City Council. They got one as well. So we would love to. We're going to be presenting videos. I know that we did a video with on a couple of the Mount Alexander projects, so we will be sharing those. I think my team is actually going to be sharing the Knox City Council video. We might have that in the chat today as well. So just take a look at the different ways that councils are working and strengthening relationships with First Peoples and putting that important shared decision making with traditional owners and all First Peoples in their municipality into their practice and their planning processes. But Donna, thank you so much for today. Was there anything else you'd like to share with the other councils that are joining us today?
Oh, well, no, I don't know, but if you're working on Djaara country, I'm very available. I have yarns with council officers regularly, and just love to support the work in reconciliation. I think local government has a huge role to play, and just thank you to the Reconciliation Victoria team. They're amazing, little team that does so much work. It just blows me away. Thank you so much for everything you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm looking at those gummies behind you, Donna, and I think, oh, I'd love to be up your end of the world right now. So thank you for your time today, and hopefully we will get a chance to travel up there, and good luck with the work at Greater Bendigo too. I can't wait to hear more about that.
Great. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Thanks, Donna. Okay, and so here we go. So here's your QR code. If you want to put a nomination in, you can click onto that. You can pop something through now, just an expression of interest, or we'll have that up on our Maggolee website and also on the RecVic website as well. So if you've got some ideas and you think, look, we need to really, put a nomination in this year, we would love to hear from you. Hi, Yasmin. I think that, Yasmin, you might be from Kingston. Not sure, but hi, Yasmin. I hope yay! Good to have your company today. I'm mindful that a lot of you are joining us on your lunch break, and there's a gorgeous sunny day out there today. So I will let many of you go, but I just really wanted to thank Karen and Donna for your time today, coming to share more about the importance of this year's National Reconciliation Week theme. But it is not just a theme. Reconciliation is all the year round, and we really invite all of your councils to influence work, do the work that you have been doing. Just keep influencing and increasing awareness about the importance of what reconciliation means to all of us and for our journey and identity as a nation. So thank you so much, everybody. I hope we get an opportunity to connect with you further leading up to Rec Week. If you do have activities you would like to share with us, please send them through to Rec Australia's website as well as Reconciliation Victoria. We've got a localised calendar, and we'd love to get your activities on board on our online so everybody can join them. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Donna. And thanks to awesome RecVic team for all your help today. Well done, Anna. We'll see you next time, guys. Thank you.